use today. Once again, good evening, everyone. Since we don't have any backlog, I'm just going to move to today's class. So far, so good. We've talked about the use keyword, we've talked about select, use, we've talked about select from, we've talked about the where keyword, and we've talked about the operators in where, other than the operators, where we talked about greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and a lot of them. We also talked about the like keyword that allows us to, that also introduced us to um, MySQL wildcard, right? So we talked on the wildcards, we talked about the percentage symbol as a wildcard and the underscore symbol, and we're able to differentiate between those. Other than those, what did we also talk about too? Let me see. We talked about order by, and we say we can use order by to sort our results either in an ascending or descending order. Other than that, we also mentioned the limit keyword, and we said we can use the limit keyword to mention the amount of output that we want to. Yes. What about like class rep? Class rep, talk to me. What about like? Did I mention? I forgot it.
We talked
Like
about it. That's what I'm saying.
yes, yeah, okay, yes, true, yes, true. So we talked about like as a means of establishing patterns or picking out results based on given patterns. That introduced us to wildcard. And then other than wildcard, we talked about the limit keyword that also that um that helps you limit the amount of rows that you want to display every time you're pulling out a result or an output. All right. So as is our usual custom, every time we open MySQL afresh, you would notice that none of the databases are selected. So we have to go back to the top again and use the use world. If we're going to use the world database, we have to use the use keyword to select the database, right? So we can highlight this and then execute this line of code so that it will select the database for us. So if we do that, you can see that world is now selected as the database that we're working with. So any code that we write subsequently now will be any table we are looking for, whatever we're looking for, will be picked from inside world database. Okay. So other than using our code to select world, let me show you guys the cheaper one now. For instance, if I didn't want to use world database anymore and I wanted to use Sakila, for instance, I could use the code to say use Sakila to activate that. We have this like use Sakila. Okay. Let me see. I think I have a message. Yes, in my mind, I was sharing my screen. Thanks for reminding me, IJ. So in my mind, you all were seeing my screen like this. I was already done sharing. Okay, so let's take it up, right? So I was saying that as is our usual custom, every time we open our database afresh, you would most likely realize that our use keyword, this none of us, sorry, you would most likely realize that none of our databases are selected. So neither world, when I opened my neither world or Sakila was selected. So what I did was I came back to this use world and executed the code, the line of code for use world. Okay. So world is now selected. In the same way, if I want to change my database, for instance, say I want to use Sakila, I could also go back to write the code for Sakila and say use Sakila and then highlight that same Sakila there, right? And then execute that. So now that I've executed this line of code, you can see that the database that is selected is Sakila. It's no longer world. So what I wanted to show us was that other than using our use code to select database, we can also just double click on the database that we want to use, and that's selected already. So if I double click on this, you see that the highlighted database is now world. If I go back to Sakila, double click, highlighted database is Sakila. Click twice, highlighted database world. Okay, so we could either use our use keyword or just select our database manually. Sure, that one is a cheat. So let's just leave that one there. All right. So we've discussed about a lot of things, and everything we've been discussed in the previous classes have all been about pulling out or retrieving data from our database. Okay. So when we are going to start this class, Ugoma said something. She said, "Oh, I understand everything you've been teaching, but it's been difficult for me to look for a live application for this." Okay. So where how we should learn this, because the reason why I'm addressing this is because Ugoma said something. How would the question be like in the real world? That was the question she was asking. So what kind of question can be asked in the real world? Okay, so if you'd notice with my SQL, it's not like we are analyzing data here. What we are doing is pretty much learning how to retrieve data from databases. Okay, so what you should be thinking of, the way I gave you that test questions, most times those um that's classroom basis, because most times when we go to school to learn, you're being questions are being asked to you based on what you've learned, like what is this, what is that. But in the real world, no employer begins to ask you for what is a database, what is this, what code should you use to do this or whatever. They just give you a task and you have to apply what you've already learned to be able to accomplish that task. So in this same case too, let, nobody is going to be, maybe in an interview they may just ask you, if we want to do this, we want to do that. Just like the questions that I asked on the for the assignment, maybe in an interview they can ask you what questions like that, to say using this, do this or do that or do that and all of that. But in the real world, a lot of times what will be given to you is a task. They can ask you to analyze something, but you need to pull out the data that you need for that analysis. And how you get to pull out data from that database is by writing your SQL code. Okay. So if for instance now your if for instance your company says, let's get back to our database. The data we've been using all through has been country. Select everything from, move this forward. Okay. Select everything from country. So let's just look at this data again. So if for instance your if for instance your company says, for instance, we need to find if there are any patterns in the maybe life expectancy. Okay, maybe let me just assume, say you work in a pharmacy. Okay, a pharmacy, and this pharmacy that you're you're working in that pharmacy as a data analyst, and this pharmacy is saying, we're looking for countries. Okay, we're looking for countries um, that we most likely would be interested in our products. And this our product is supposed to elongate the lifespan of people. Okay, so let's look for countries whose life expectancy is very low. Do you get? So they're saying, look for countries. We need to analyze and find the names of the countries whose life expectancy is less than 50. So that, because those are our potential clients, for countries that have life expectancy of up to 78, like this Aruba here, in the Caribbean that have life expectancy of 78, what, like, they won't be bothered to be buying drugs for to elongate their lifespan, because they're already living very well. But imagine a country that, at an average, say you live too much, you will not live beyond 35 years or something. If you find a solution that is going to help you live longer than that, obviously you would want that kind of thing, right? So your pharmacy is interested in selling products to those kind of countries, but they need to find countries whose life expectancy is less than 50, so that they can make those countries their potential supply areas. If you are given that kind of task to analyze and find those kind of countries, nobody is going to be telling you to use the use code or use the select or select from or whatever. They will not be telling you how exactly to go about it. All they need is names of countries whose life expectancy is less than 50. And it's your responsibility to pull that out of the database. What would you have to do in that case? Okay, so you see that Here, what's being given to you is a task. How you go about it is none of our business. Just go about it in the most professional way that you can and give us the result that we're looking for. So you have to definitely write your code to get countries whose life expectancies are less than 50. In this case, what you'll be doing would look like this. Are lower than 50. Okay. So if we're going to do that, we're going to say select, and let's say for instance, select name, because if we're saying only country names, for instance, and let's just put the country name, comma, and the life expectancy. Select name and from country, what will our condition be? Where life
Life
expectancy
expectancy is less than 50.
50. Okay. So if we do this now, excuse me. If we do this, say that we have these two columns now. These are the names of the countries whose life expectancies are less than 50. Say for instance we have this, and this is what we are supposed to give to our bosses. It looks good already that we already have the name of the countries whose life expectancy are less than 50, but we need to start thinking now, okay, if I want to give my boss this, what would you want to see first? If you're the one, would you want to see first position to the last position? Do you want to see it arranged in that order? Okay, that's little detail organization now. Because if your boss looks at this now and say, so Afghanistan 45 and 38 is going to be like, okay, so which country has the lowest life expectancy? Because we are looking for the worst cases. Do you understand? Because the worse the life expectancy, the more chances that they are going to buy our drugs. Okay, so it means that you have to arrange this life expectancy results from the worst to the best, which is in an ascending order. Okay, that means that you also have to do the order by um life expectancy, right? So if we order them by default, it will order by in an ascending order. See that? So the worst country is Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi. Let's add continents to this, comma, continent. So if we add continent as a column to this our code now, let's try to extract that and see. Do you not see that the continents that has the worst life expectancy are all African countries, are the Africa. The countries that have the worst life expectancy are all Africa. 37 from Zambia, blah blah blah. So if you look at this already, you don't even need to. Common sense will already tell your boss that his major market is Africa. Does this make sense to us at all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
At least you see the kind of things they sell in Africa now, like drugs for aging, anti-aging cream, anti this, blah blah blah. You know that obviously a lot of people are already working with this data. So Africa is your go-to place if you're looking to sell those kind of drugs for to increase people's life expectancy generally. Supplements, Africa, all of this, Africa. So you can see that what was given to you now by your boss was a task. This is what we want to achieve. Like entirely, they have said to you, this is what want to achieve. We just want to know what countries we need to sell these products to, or we need to sell, or most countries that most likely need this product. It might not even be that. In fact, from there they can start making informed decisions. Like if we want to do paid adverts, we should do paid adverts to Africa. If we need ambassadors, we should pick ambassadors from Africa. Okay. If we need to do whatever we need to do, branding, blah blah blah, we need to be considering Africa because that's our target market. All right. So that's how the real life situation is going to be. Nobody's going to be asking you if you're going to use select or use blah blah blah, and that. So and the second thing that you should also note is that MySQL does not necessarily do the analyzing. You can ask some questions and answer it with MySQL, but when it comes to analyzing, visualizing, creating reports, then you need to learn other tools like Power BI and Excel. Because so long as I'm concerned, if this was the task that you guys had going for the next 3 months, once you have pulled out this code from MySQL, you might not even come back to SQL to be doing anything, except if there's a new requirement that demands a new set of data. So you can see that with MySQL, you've written the code to retrieve your data. Now that you've retrieved your data, most of the work now comes in inside Power BI or Excel. So pretty much that's how the workflow of data analysis is. If you, I don't know, okay, a lot of us were not in the a lot of us were not in the Power BI class. That's where we're talking about what data analysis is, what data is, and all of that. We did all of those in that Power BI class. I'm not sure we did that in this MySQL class. But what data analysis, like the skills that every data analyst needs to have, is first off to be able to connect to a database and retrieve the data that he needs. Secondly, he needs to be able to transform the data. Transform means cleaning the data. Thirdly, he needs to be able to model the data where necessary or shape the data where necessary. On the fourth hand, he needs to be able to analyze and visualize the data using accurate visuals, of course. And then lastly, he needs to be able to report his findings from this data in such a way that the company can eventually make data-driven decisions. So where MySQL comes in the whole of this chain of duty that I've just mentioned, or responsibilities of the data analyst, where MySQL or SQL comes in is where you need is from that beginning connecting to your data set. So you also use SQL to do a bit of a lot of transformations, actually, like replacing missing values and all of that, or changing values, or find you can all of those little correcting your database, deleting some things out of your database, all of those things you can do that with SQL. So when it comes to connecting to database and transforming database, pretty much SQL is your guy. You can do those on SQL. But even with the transformation, you would rather do your transformation on Excel or Power BI because you are seeing what you're doing. It's not like SQL where you're writing code. So transformation is way easier with Excel or Power BI. So majorly, 90% of the work of retrieving data of SQL will be around retrieving database. A lot of what you'll be doing will be around pulling out database. After you're done pulling that out, you've already moved to other applications. So it's a must know because you would always deal with database. As a data analyst, you would always deal with database for organized institutions. So it's not all these small companies that are collecting all their data inside Excel. But for organized institutions and organized companies, you would always deal with database. So you must have SQL. Then SQL alongside Power BI and Excel, you're good. Or maybe Tableau or any of the other guys. So when it gets advanced to machine learning and all of that, then you can start bringing in Python. All right. So let's just get back to class for today. So we have basically learned different ways that we can retrieve databases from our different codes that we can use to retrieve databases, how to write our conditions to get out the databases that we want. So next off, we'll go from today, we're going to start talking about manipulating databases. Okay. So manipulating databases would include things like deleting records, replacing, okay, replacing records, deleting, replacing. What else do we have? Adding record, okay. What else do we have other than adding record again?
Updating records.
That would be replacing.
Yeah.
What of insert?
That's adding.
That's adding.
I'm just like, yeah, I'm just using like common words that we can relate to so that we will understand. So for instance, we need to add new thing, we need to remove something, we need to replace something, we need to correct something. All of those things will have to do with, all of those things simply stands for updating database. Are we together? Hello? Sorry,
Yes, sir.
that's the updating. I said
Yes,
I meant to say
sir.
manipulating database. Okay, so those are the kind of things we want to start learning now. what we've learned before is pulling out the kind of data that we want, writing conditions. Now we want to learn how to change things in our database, right? Okay, so in the list of all of these things that we want to learn, let's start with the good one first. Adding records. So let's call this inserting record or adding record. Okay, so say for instance we have a table. Yes, what I'm thinking of is I don't want to manipulate this table that we already have, like this our default table. Admin, are you there?
Yes, sir.
What do we do? Should we create a new database for this?
If that won't take much of our time, it's better. So that I won't disrupt this one that we have already.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. Let's create a table, but we'll create a table from an existing table, okay? So that we'll use this for that, for this data manipulation class, okay? So let's do
Oh.
create. Let's call this table test. Call this table sample, okay? Create table sample. Let's use as. So select. What are the names of our columns? Name. What else should we take? Region. Let's take population.
What of continent?
Continent. Life expectancy. I think we should be fine with this. From country. Okay. I think this is fine. Okay. So what I'm doing with this code is that I'm using a part of our record. You know, if we pull this out, this part of our code out, this is the database I'm pulling out, okay? So, but what we are doing is that this table now, we are using it to create a separate table so that if we do anything to this one, it won't affect the original country table, okay? So this table now, we are creating it and we're saving its name as sample. I don't know, this might be a bit confusing for us, but it's not the focus of today's class because we're not talking about creating table. But what we are doing is creating a table from an existing table, okay?
You get it, sir.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, so if we have done this our code worked just fine. Let's refresh and see what we have inside our tables. Can you now see that inside world now we have sample? This is the new table we just created. So we might as well do this and say select everything from sample. So this is the table we'll be using to manipulate our record. So this is the same thing that we had there. So again, what we did was to pick out these things. I'm very sure that no, this code is not strange to anyone again. We just picked out these columns from our existing table and then we saved it as a separate table. It's like copying it and pasting it as a new table. If you had that in Excel, what you'll be doing is to just copy it from one sheet and create a new sheet and paste it there. This is exactly what we've done with SQL. We're just using the create table code. I hope that November gives us enough time so that we'll also talk about data, creating table, creating database, and all of that. I hope to cover as much as possible with us. That depends on how fast we go with class, though. But let's just get to. I'm going to copy this code and put it in the chat box for us.
Hello, sir.
Present.
Please, how did you save the table sample.
Sam, how did I save it?
Yeah. To appear under schemas.
The moment you use create table, this is the code that saves it. I didn't need to save it. The moment I executed this code, it got into Word. But for you to see it, you might not be able to see it direct, except you use this refresh button. See schemas, there's this small button here for refresh.
Yes. Okay.
So once you click on that, your database will refresh to see to reflect any new changes that have been made. Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, so I just dropped this the code for this table on our chat box so that we can all copy also and do the same thing if we are following class like that. All right, so now that we have a new table called sample, this is where we are going to start playing. So what we are going to do is inserting record. Okay. Okay, so to insert record in MySQL, we use the code insert into. Okay, we use the code insert into. So if, for instance, we want to insert a new line, a new record, maybe like a new country now, maybe a country is missing, a client name is missing, or whatever it is that is missing, what we are going to do is to insert is to do the insert code. So we have this insert into, sorry, this is insert into. Okay, so if once you click on insert into, the next code that follows is the name of your table. Okay, so how it works is that you say insert into table name, and the name of our table is what? What's the name of our table?
Sample.
One
Sample.
response. Exactly. So we can say insert into samples, then next off we can now have the keyword values. Okay, so insert into sample, then we have keyword values. Now these values now that we're talking about, now we are talking about what we want to insert into this place. How these values work is that if, for instance, in this our sample table now, how many columns do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and this all these columns, they have a particular order already. It starts with name, region, population, continent, and then life expectancy. So let's say we want to insert a country, and the name of this country is A. Sorry, change my keyboard. Okay, name of our country is A. You get, because the first thing is name, right? So if the name of the country is A, comma, what's the next thing that we have? The region of the country. Our region is B. I'm just playing around, okay? So these are not actual values. And then our population is a number, so we don't have to put it in quotes, okay? So population is called that 90K. What's the third thing that we have? Continent, Africa. What's the last thing that we have? Life expectancy. Life expectancy, let's put the life expectancy of this country at 50.2. Okay, so once we have this, so this is our insert code. So this is how we insert records into MySQL. We say insert into, next thing that follows is the name of the table, and then we can now specify the values, and then we can specify the names of the values. And again, always remember that the values have to be arranged in the order that the column names are arranged. So if you cannot see the column, you cannot see your table to arrange your values in the same way, you have to write your select from code to bring out the table like this before you start inserting, so that you can know what column is the first, what is the second, and then you can now insert corresponding values. So if I do this and execute this line of code, for me to see the changes that I have effected, what do I have to do? I have to run my select code. Select everything from sample. Okay, so if I run my select code now, let me see if this works correctly. Boom, we've not seen it yet. Let's try to order by, see if we'll find it. Order by name. Okay, have you seen we've done so far now? So we have country name as A, region B, population 90, continent, Africa, life expectancy, 50.2. These are the exact values that we have here. Okay. Is that, do we understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's make a second example. Okay. Second example, we need to insert values into our table. Okay. So let me see who is in class. Let me engage somebody. Oops, 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 oops. Who is it? Gloria, are you there? Funke Gloria.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Insert into sample values. Okay, so Funke Gloria, I want you to give me names according, like values according to the way this our table is arranged. Okay, so let's go. First thing, name of country.
Um,
Give me a name.
Mexico.
Mexico is already existing in our database. Give me a country that doesn't exist. An imaginary country.
Um, I can just choose any. Okay, maybe let's say Surulere or something.
Surulere. That's how you know people who are staying in Lagos. Region of country.
Eh, region, you can use Lagos.
Next, what do we have? Population.
Population, let's say 4,000.
4,000. What else? Continent.
Continent, you can say Nigeria.
Okay. Life expectancy of people in Surulere.
Let's say 45.9.
All right. Thank you very much, Funke. I hope you're
Thank you.
understanding what we are doing in class.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. So we have this now. Let me move this column down so that we don't have a lot of. So now that we have insert into, what's the next argument that follows? Name of table. Then values, then we specify our values inside bracket. Again, don't forget, we have to, if for instance now, this is population. If for instance, population is supposed to be like the third column, and I come and put the number for population on first as the first value, what will happen is that this population value will enter into name. It will enter into population, okay? MySQL is not going to by default think it should be in population, okay? So always arrange your values the way your column is arranged. I'm going to specify a few things for us. What's going on here? Are we missing something? Column content at row 1, data truncated. Let's see, select everything from sample again. Values completed. Surulere, Lagos, 4,000, blah, blah, blah. Let me see. Column continent. What are we supposed to have for continent? Let's change this value for continent and see
Okay,
something.
maybe the continent is not recognized, I think.
Yeah, let's try that with Africa again and see what we have. Okay, so that worked. So when we get to
Because
creating
Nigeria is
database, yes, Nigeria is not a continent. When we get to creating database, we start learning. We learn things that we learn how to place rules, okay, over our database so that value we can on certain columns, okay, there are values that have to be there, okay. That's what was done on this database. So if for instance you are mentioning any other thing that does not rhyme with an existing value that was specified as a rule, do you get? I don't know if how best to explain that we've already specified some values that like the default values that would need to be in that column. So any other value apart from those specified values will not work on that. That's what happened in that continent. So it's used to just ensure that your data has integrity. So when we get to database creation, we'll most likely see all of those rules and regulations for creating database. So that's the reason why Nigeria did not work inside continent. Rather, Africa worked. So if we go back again and do select everything, let's execute this. So we have all of this. How do we find Surulere? Somebody give me a code to find Surulere. I don't want to scroll down to S.
Select from sample. Select all from sample.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Select all from sample.
Yeah, I'm listening. Continue.
Then order by name.
Order by name. It will start from A or start from Z. Steven,
What do you say?
that's accurate. Data validation works. I say it will start from Z. It will start from A to Z if you are
Where?
ordering by name.
Where name?
Ugoma, remind me. Yeah, Ugoma.
Where
Name
name like
is like
name?
like percent, like S
Okay,
percent.
from sample. Um, select everything from sample. Where name.
Where name like
Where?
Where
When
name
name.
equals Surulere, because what we are looking for is that value for Surulere to see if it exists in our database. Okay, so we are saying select from sample where name, rather name is supposed to be here, where name equals Surulere. Okay,
Yes.
so this is like that's what we are looking for. So this totally works it. So you can see that we have that row inserted. Surulere, Lagos, population, Africa, life expectancy. This works, doesn't it? Now, let me give us the hard way of doing the same thing. Method 2. So if we're working with method 2 now, method 2 is that if, for instance, let me show you something. Permit me to copy the same thing again because I don't want to have to type everything from the start. So we have insert into sample, okay? So in this method 2, let's assume that the values that we have is only for, we have values for name of the country. We don't have values for the region of the country. Or let's say we have values for region of the country, but we don't have the population values of this country, okay? So let's delete population out, okay? So we have Surulere, Lagos, no population, we have Africa, and then we also have 45.9 as life expectancy. If I execute this code, let's see what we are going to stumble across. See what we're going to stumble across. Error code 1136. Okay, so this says column count does not match value count at row 1. So it's simply saying to us that the number of columns that we have is more than the number of rows, or the number of columns is not equal to the number of rows. How many columns do we have? We have about 5 columns. How many values do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's saying that number of values is not the same thing as number of columns. Okay, is that okay? Did we get that? First fish. First fish, talk to me.
Yes, sir.
Like when you remove the
Yes, sir.
population column now,
Yes,
let's say we want
yes.
to
The
create
value
an
for population.
empty column for that population. How are we going to create it?
Say you want to put empty value into population.
Yes.
Like you don't want, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to do here. So you are inserting values, but there are some values you have, but you don't have other ones. In this case now, you have the name of the country, region, you don't have the population, but you have continent and life expectancy of that column. So what are we going to do in this case? In this case, what we are going to do is what the error we are getting is that the number of values is not equal to the number of columns. So how we get to boycott this is to go back to our insert code and write the names of the columns that we want to insert values into. Okay, so let's say for instance we want to insert value into name, region, population. Sorry, we don't have population. Hold on, I'm trying to. Okay, thank you. Okay, so name, region, we have name, region, continent, and life expectancy.
We
So
can't
if
see
we have
what you are
insert
typing.
into, you can't see what I'm typing. I'm not typing yet. Can you see my screen though? Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So insert
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
insert into sample as the name of the table, but then inside sample we need to specify the columns we want to insert values into. So we
Yes.
have name, region. Okay. So since we don't have population, we'll skip population here. So we have continent, and then we have life expectancy. Okay, so let's just have this like this. Now, this is exactly what MySQL is going to do. MySQL is going to, instead of counting the number of values as against the number of columns that we have inside our table, is going to count the number of values as against the number of columns we have specified here. So we have 4 columns specified, highlighted here, and then we have 4 values. So it won't be matching, MySQL will not be matching this value by the table directly again. It's going to be matching this value by the names of the columns that we have specified here. So what I'm pretty much saying is, if you don't have all the values complete, then specify the names of the columns that you have values for. So if we execute this again, we will not have that same code again. So pretty much this has worked. Let's go back and see, select everything from sample. We are going to have like 2 Surulere, where name equals Surulere. Let's do this. Boom. So do you now see the 2 Surulere? Surulere, see the second one. So you now see that here we have default value of population is 0. Okay, because most likely from the creation of the database, they must have placed a rule to say that when no value is inserted into population, it should be 0. Okay, so all of those are inside, like Stephen called it, data validation. But in SQL and database, we call them constraints. Constraints, rules and regulations that we place on columns for what should happen in certain situations. So the first constraint we met was that we couldn't insert any other thing apart from an existing continent, right? We are not able to insert Nigeria inside continent table, continent column. Simple reason why, there's a constraint. They had already specified the 7 continents, and you must put one of the 7 continents. You can't add a new continent that does not exist already. So it's called a constraint. Again, for this population, there's a constraint on it to say that if you don't specify population, the value should be 0. That's the reason why you're saying 0 here. Okay, so those are database creation stuff. So we'll get into them over time. So do we understand how we get to insert data into our table now? Bello, questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My question is on create table
Okay.
sample as. Why don't you just say create table as sample? Why do we put the as at the end?
Okay, so I need you to, when you're thinking about coding, right? Because here we're dealing with coding. Please mute your audio if you're not speaking, please. Thank you. So when you're thinking about coding, let me tell you how you should be thinking about it. In coding, coding is like a language. There are ways that things are done. And when you say things otherwise, for instance, if for instance I want to say I'm happy to be here, or maybe I want to say I understand. Let's say for instance there's somebody here in this class that wants to say I understand, and the person now starts saying I understood. I understood you, sir. I understood you. That would be like, I'm talking about rights. You'd be like, to the person, you'd be saying to the person, we don't mean yesterday. It's not what I said yesterday. I'm talking about, do you understand what I'm saying now? You get, because you cannot, in English language, you cannot say I understood you. Does that make any sense? Hello. Okay, so in the same thing too with code, there are specific ways that code have been specified that they should work. So if you write it otherwise, it won't work that way. So we could, in that create table, in this creatable class, sorry, code, where's that code again? Create, if we say create table as sample, it makes sense in English, but in MySQL it won't work because every time we write create table first, the next thing we expect to follow is sample, like the name of the table, and then you can now specify every other thing. But in this case, as follows, then before you can specify the code. So I can't explain to you why if you write it the other way around, it may not work, but this is how it's been programmed to work, and this is how it's going to work. So just try to get used to it. In the same way too, when we are using all of this where continent equal to, we can say maybe select country from continent or something. We can try to merge all of this in a way that will make sense in English, but it won't work because it's not been designed to work that way. All right. I think we're good with that. So as a means of summarizing, if we don't have any other question from insert class, as a means of summarizing what we have here already,
Please, I have a
okay,
question.
from insert,
Yes, sort
listen,
of this methods too.
yes,
Like I was thinking, is it going to work if we, instead of typing this insert sample name, region, and continent, is it going to work if we just type like these values, Surulere, Lagos, then another column, we now put empty space, then continue, just like Excel can work if we don't want any value to be there, then we just put the column, then empty space, then move with comma to
you
the
mean if you do
next
something like this?
requirement.
You mean if you do something like
Yes,
this?
yes, something like that.
Okay, so if you do something like this, have you can you see this line already? Can you see the X symbol?
Oh, okay.
Can you see that?
It's
It's
already
already
showing
notice. It's already showing that okay, with this what you're doing already, there's already an error with what you're doing. So this would not pass. Maybe if we did something like this, it might pass. Okay, so this is an empty string now, but we specified it like a value, but there's no value inside. So the value in this place that we are putting is the space, because space is also a value in coding.
okay.
Do you understand? So in that case, what we'll be doing is something similar to this, to just add space like this in that case. But if you are doing this, then you don't have to specify, you have to include population inside your column names now, okay?
Okay.
Mm. So on the other hand,
Or
if you don't have any
necessarily we might not
value,
type the first one,
you
right?
said, which one? This first line of code.
Instead, like we might not type this name, region, continent. Can we just go forward
Exactly,
to these
exactly.
values?
You can exactly, if you didn't type this, if you didn't have this there, it would still work because under population you inserted this as a value. But let's even see if the
Oh,
constraint on population column will allow space to work. Ah, it didn't even work because space is not a number.
No,
No,
what
no,
you
do
maybe.
you,
okay,
do you
because
understand?
you
Hold
have
on.
code should not be
You
there.
said
The code should not be there.
without
It's
the code,
done by the code should not be there.
without the code, it won't work. You're going to still have error. That there's not, you didn't specify anything.
Okay.
You're going to have error
Okay.
either
Thank
way.
you.
So assuming it was a
Okay, but if we
text-based
try it
column,
with
if it
Lagos,
was a
let's say
if it
we
was
try
a
it with Lagos.
it would work. It would work on Lagos
Okay.
because Lagos is text-based. The reason why, remember we said every time you are writing a text, we should put it inside what those quotes, right? But if it's a number, don't put it inside the quotes. So if the column that we're dealing with was a text-based column like Lagos, where it's all text, or name of countries, you get all of those columns that just have text. This is going to work and it's going to pass as a valid input. And then you'll not just see anything in the cell except space.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. So what are we doing? Let's leave it at this, right? All right. Do you have any other questions?
Hello, sir.
Yes, I'm with you.
Can we export the new table to Excel
This,
outside MySQL?
yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay.
Mm. You
Thanks.
can. One of the simplest ways you can do that is once you pull out your output like this. This is the new table we just did, right? So we see X. Have you seen export here? Just above here. So you can click on the export, and then you can export it as an external file out. All right. Can we make progress? Can we make progress?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
we
We
Yes.
can
can.
proceed.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So next thing we need to do is updates. We've learned how to insert new rows or values. Under that, we discussed how you can insert values when you have all the complete values and how you can go around it when you don't have all the complete values. When you don't have all the complete values, we said you need to specify the names of the columns that you have values for and then the values for those columns you specified. Okay. Now we're going to talk about update. In update is used to change a value in your database. Okay, so let's say for instance now that's Surulere where we have Lagos as region. Let's say instead of Lagos we want to have um what's the word, maybe Western region. Okay, we want to have West as the region instead of Lagos. What are we going to do? In this case we need to replace, where's this my code? This is the code I want to execute. Okay, so this is the table we are dealing with here. So we have region as Lagos. Okay, region as Lagos. So what I want to do now is I want to update this region from Lagos into West. Do you get, like, Western region? So what am I going to do? I'm going to do this. Update. After update, guess what follows next? Table name. Okay, sample. That's what follows next. So update sample as, which is our table name. Then we can now use the set keyword. Set keyword allows you to specify what values you want to set. So in this set keyword, we are going to say set, for instance, equal region equal west. Let's use Western region, okay? But this is not going to be all because we need to specify. If I run this code like this, guys, let me tell you, this is where SQL really gets sensitive. If I execute this code like this, you say update sample, set region equal Western region, and I execute this code, do you know what will happen? All the values under region will change to Western region. Everything will change. Ima- imagine, imagine that you're working in a company that has been gathering data for the past 10 years, and then they say go and update one person's name. They say go and update somebody's name. Maybe somebody's name that is supposed to write Michael, you wrote Mark. And they said, okay, update that Mark to Michael. You now go and say update customers and then set customer name equal Mark or Michael. And you just run that code before. All like 1 million customers, all their names like this will just change to Michael. Everybody will be Michael. And trust me, in MySQL, we don't have Control Z. You can't Control Z it back to the way it was before. So this is the reason why every time they are shouting, you must know SQL, you must know SQL. This is where it gets really sensitive because a little mistake can actually cost a lot. Actually, if you do that kind of mistake like this, just excuse yourself that you want to go and maybe pee or something or wee, and then pack your bag, disappear, go to your village, just hide because they will come for you. Okay, so update sample set region equal Western region, and then what we are going to do is to add our where keyword. Okay, so we're going to say now this is going to reduce with our where keyword. Now we need to reduce the impact. We need to just specify where we want to make this correction. So we can say where name equal Surulere. So what's the impact of this now? It means that it's only where our country name is equal to Surulere that the region is going to be updated to Western region. Every other place where name is not equal to Surulere, it won't touch the region. Okay, but if we don't specify this where keyword, what will happen? It will affect our whole database. So let's just get that straight. So if I have this, let's execute this. Really? What do I have here? Really? That's incorrect, inaccurate, man. So I have this error code saying that you are using safe update mode and you try to update a table without a where clause that uses a key column. Oops. To disable safe mode, go to option, preference, SQL editor, and reconnect. Let's see. Options, let me see. We need to disable this. Let's go to edit, preference. I'm trying to disable my safe mode so that we can execute this thing. Preference, under that, is it query editor now? Hold on, I need to be very, very sure the instructions here. Preference, SQL editor. Okay. Edit, options. The reason I'm doing this is so that it will allow us to update, because I know what it's saying there. It's not something that we're about to fix anytime soon. SQL. Can anyone find safe mode?
It's not here.
Limit rows, confirm blah blah blah, preserve rows, administration. Oops. Okay, let's look at what we have here. Okay, see safe update here under this SQL editor here. Yeah. So let me just disable this and then click on OK. And then we need to reconnect. So I'm just going to close this and try to open it again. All right, let's go back again and try to run this update and see if it will work this time around. Yeah, I think we got it done. All right, so it worked now. So let's try and select our database and see what we have there. Select database where, let me go back and run this code. Select from sample where name equals Surulere. So here you can see that all the regions in Surulere have been updated to Western region. All right, so let me explain to you what just happened there. Okay, so in my SQL Workbench, there's a feature called Safe Mode that disables you from making changes to your database, except when it's not going to affect more than one column. Okay, so in this table here, we have our key column is not primary key. If you go back to our country table, select everything from country. Select. There's a column there in that country table. Select everything from country. There's a column in country table called code. This country code. This is our country. This is the only column that you can use to make any update that will work on the default state of MySQL. So you can say update something where code equals to this, because all these countries here, they all have different codes. So if, for instance, you say where code is equal to ABW, it will not affect any other column apart from this. This is like a safety feature, because like I said, if you try to update a database without a where keyword, it will change the entire rows in that column. If, for instance, if we just say set region to Western region, imagine all these are region here under this region column. Imagine that everything there is Western region. It won't make sense at all, right? So my Workbench has a default feature called safety feature that disables you from making any changes that would not involve you writing where where clause. So, and even when you are specifying your where clause, you cannot even specify where any other column is equal to any other thing. It has to be where code is equal to something something something, like the country code, because that way you can only update one row of data at a time. You cannot update more than one. So in this case, where we are going to execute, where we are going to change region to Surulere, where name is equal to Surulere, where we are going to change region to Western region, where name is equal to Surulere. In this code here, we would, because we are not using where code equal to, our sample table does not have code column. Of course, it doesn't have code. We didn't pick up the code column from when we are creating it at all. So, but because the code column does not exist and we are not going to use where keyword alongside code to make the update, that's the reason why we're getting that error. So I had to disable that safety feature so that we can do whatever we need to do with a lot of freedom actually. So if you need to disable that same code on your own end for Workbench, just go to your edit, last option there, edit is up here, edit tab, and then go to preferences. Under preferences, we have SQL editor. So once you select on SQL editor, the last option there you see save updates. So just disable that option and close it and click on OK. All right, permit me to continue class. Boom. All right, so if we have this, our table has already been updated and our region is now Western region instead of Lagos as a region. So if you see the impact of this, you can see that both regions for this Surulere were changed to Western region. So the question here is, what if, for instance, I just want to update only one and I don't want to update all two of them, okay? What if, because if they were like 50 Suruleres in this our database now, all of them would have updated to Western region, Western region, Western region, which can be advantageous, shy, if that's what you want to achieve. But if this Surulere, let's say this Surulere now is in Western region, what if there was another Surulere in the Southern region and we don't want to update both of them to Western region? So it means that we have to find a way to pick out only one Surulere. So if I'm going to do this, let's copy the same code again and paste it, update table name, set region to, let's change this one to Southern region, okay? Southern region. So now we are saying where name equals Surulere, because there's no code here. Let me change this back to name. So we're saying where name equals Surulere, but there are two places that has name as Surulere. One is in Lagos, which is in Western region. The other one is in Southern region. So it means that I have to look for another thing to help. So the second thing that I can look for here is what is common to this column or to this row of data, to this Surulere that is in the South, that is not in this one. And in this case now, you notice that we have different populations, right? Population of one is 0, population of the other one is 4,000. So it means that I have to write a double where condition to say where name equals to Surulere and what? And population equal 0. Does this make sense? So with these two conditions now, it means that if it goes here, name is equal to Surulere, but population is not equal 0. So it won't update this one to Southern region. It's just go here where name is equal to Surulere and population is equal 0 and update this. So if I execute this, this works. So let's go back and print out all our columns where name is equal to Surulere. So do you now see that this Surulere now is in Western region and this one is in Southern region?
Yes, sir.
Question? Hello?
Yes, sir. Instead of saying where name equals rural area and population, because why can't you just use where population equals 4,000? Is it possible?
Yes, you can say where population equal 4,000, but it will be affecting this first row, okay? But the scenario
Or
that
where
we,
population equals 0?
Equal what?
0, since we are dealing with the one having 0.
And that's what we did here. Where population equals 0.
What I'm saying, instead of having where name equals to Surulere and population
Okay.
equals to 0, can we just
Mhm.
use only our population and then not adding Surulere to it, which is name column?
Where population equals 0. What if in our database there was another country whose population is equal 0?
Okay. So it's
Do you understand?
better to
Let's say
use two columns to be on the safer side.
yes, to be on the safer side, you have to add as much condition to select the only the row. Like you have to look for something that is unique to only the row that you want this change to affect. Do you understand? And
Oh,
write the condition to pick that thing before you go ahead. Because if you just remove name Surulere because you're thinking, maybe it's only Surulere that has 0 as a population. I can prove to you from our database that there are some other places that have population of 0. Select everything from sample where population equals 0. Okay, so let's try to run this. Do you now see? See Antarctica 0, French blah 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 0, Bouvet Island 0. Do you now see all of these are countries apart from Sisurulere to 0?
oh.
So if you use only where population equals 0, this change that you have made now to that region would have affected all of this region of Antarctica, blah blah blah. All of them will have changed to Western region or Southern region, Southern region. That's the
You can't hear you again, sir.
hello.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry, network just went off on me. What was the last thing I said?
We were talking about picking, using population column as our selector.
Okay. So I think but did you get it when I made the mistake to see that when I wrote the code to see other continents
Yes, yes,
or other
yes,
countries
yes,
that had 0? Okay. So I
yes.
pretty much believe that you get the point already. Okay. So can we move on? Questions? Do we have any other questions? Thank you, First Fish. Steven, questions?
I'm with you, sir. It's very clear.
Okay. Ugoma,
Yes, sir. I understand very well.
you don't have question for anybody else?
Sir.
Class rep, class rep.
I'm here. Oh. This
Yes.
SQL editor, I've not been able to. I don't know what to click. I got
Edit.
everything you are saying, but I
Under your
couldn't
under
click
tab, go to
SQL
edit.
editor.
Go to edit,
Yes,
preference,
SQL editor.
say SQL editor. Once you get to
Yes,
SQL editor, the last option is the safe mode.
nothing like
Once you
that.
select, you don't have safe mode in yours.
I don't have save mode in mind.
I'm happy for you. My own has safe mode.
But it's telling me that
You
we are
can't.
using safe update mode, and you try to update it. So it's
Okay.
giving me
So
error.
what we're going to do for now is just share your screen. Because if I ask you to leave it now, the next thing we're going to do is still going to
Alright.
demand that safe mode. Can you share
I
your
can't
screen?
share my screen. No, I'm using my
Okay.
phone while using my
Okay. So
laptop.
just be patient. Then we'll treat that maybe later.
I think she should
I'll
follow
send.
the
Okay.
instruction given. Or what do
Mm,
you think, sir?
yeah, that's fine. All right, guys. Let's get back to class. Let's talk about the next one. So we're talking about manipulating database. In manipulating database, we mentioned in manipulating database, we said manipulating database demands us to delete record, replace record, or add records. We've talked about adding records. We've talked about replacing records, which is like updating. The next thing we need to talk about is deleting records, and deleting records is this. So let's have this. Deleting records. So in deleting records, obviously, I don't need to start defining what deleting record would mean. So this is the code. This is how we delete record in MySQL. So we can say delete from name of table is what? Sample. Okay. So once you say delete from sample, the next thing you just need to write is to write your where condition. Well, where name equal. Let me delete that one I put earlier. A. Okay. So delete from sample where name equal A. Do you remember the first example that I did? The name of the country is A. So if I do delete from record and do that, pretty much that worked. So it means that if I go back and do select from sample where name equal A, select everything from sample. Okay, so delete everything from sample where name equal A. If I try to run this now, you'd notice that it's not there anymore at all. See that our database is empty because I just deleted it. In the same way too, if I need to delete that Surulere, okay, so delete where name equals Surulere, delete from table name where name equals Surulere. What will happen? If I delete this, you know that there are two rows that have Surulere, yeah? So if I delete this, it means that the two of those rows are going to be affected. So I have to also add another condition that will affect only one of it. So I can say and population It's less than 10. And let's just put population equals 0. Population equals 0. So delete from sample where name equal to Surulere and population equals 0. So if I try to delete this has worked. So you can see that the moment once you update or you delete it, MySQL does not show you your output. You have to go back and write the select code to get your output back. So let's go back and say select everything from sample where name equals Surulere. Boom. Oops. I thought I deleted this Surulere. See, my spelling was incorrect. Okay, so Surulere is S-U-R-U. So I was deleting something that didn't existed in the first place. So let's try to delete this. So if I execute this now, let's come back and run this one. You now see that we only have the one that has 4,000 as per population left. So this is how we get to delete things also from MySQL. We use delete from table name, then we now write where, and then specify all the conditions that we are interested in. Questions? Am I still in class?
Yes, sir.
It's overly
Yes,
quiet
yes.
now. Mhm. It's overly quiet now. I felt like maybe my network had tripped off again. So
Now
can
with
we?
you.
Thank you, Chief. So can we make progress? Do we understand how to delete records? Straightforward. Delete from the name of the table, then you write your where conditions.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Stephen. Stephen, even if you were sleeping, even if I was sleeping, if I hear your voice, I'll know your voice. Let's talk about aggregation in MySQL. Mm. I think I had a question. I don't know if or did I edit it out? Did I put a question did I ask you guys to in the assignment that I gave, did I ask you guys to give the number of countries, like the number of countries, blah 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 in the database?
No.
I
No,
didn't.
sir.
Maybe I deleted that part out because I felt like it was out of what we had already covered in class. Okay. So let's talk about aggregations. So for instance, let's say for instance you want to do something like, do you remember that database that we tried to retrieve, the one that had every country with the life expectancy of less than 50? Okay. So in that database, let's say for instance we wanted to know how many countries those were. You would need an aggregation function in SQL to be able to give you the number of countries. Let me explain what aggregation functions pretty much do. Aggregation functions is a way, like in obviously from the word aggregation, what aggregation does is it brings a lot of things together and makes them into one. So aggregation functions in MySQL are functions that bring a lot of values together and return one value in return. Okay. So let's say, for instance, we are looking for the population. If, for instance, you are asked in this database, what is the population of Africa? What is Africa's population from this database? You know that you have to start picking population of Nigeria, population of South Africa, from Mozambique, Zimbabwe. You need to put up all those populations together and add them together to return one value. So that's an aggregation you did. You aggregated all the populations together for Africa and then returned what? Only one value, which is like the total population. Okay. So if you wanted to know the total number of countries too in this place, you would have to count all the countries to return back how many values? Just one. If there are about 250 countries here in this database, it means that you counted all 250 rows to arrive at that number. So that's like what aggregation functions. It functions that brings a lot of values together and returns one value in return. Okay. So in MySQL or in statistics generally, we have aggregation functions like count. We have aggregation functions like sum, minimum, maximum. What else do we have again inside aggregation functions again? Average. Okay. So we have count, minimum, maximum, average, sum. All of these are aggregation functions. They all of these things. Look at this. They all return how many values? One value. If you count the total number of countries, how many values would you get in return? How many numbers?
One.
One.
If you sum all the populations together, one value. If you look for the minimum population, how many values? One value.
One value.
If you look for maximum population, one value. If you look for the average of the population or average,
One value.
they all work on text. Sorry, on numbers. The only one that eventually works on text is count because you cannot find the sum of all the country names. Can you? Would that work statistically? Would that work? Nope. I doubt it won't work. So you can only count text. You can't calculate, you can't sum text. Okay. In the same way too, when you have sum, now you can work with some minimum, maximum, average. All of those can work with numbers, but this one works on text. So let's ask ourselves a few questions from this data. Total country names. Okay. So let's say total country names. What are we going? How are we going to use this aggregation function? In this case, since we want to get the total names of countries, what we are going to do here is to use the count function to get this result. Okay. Steven, talk to me.
Sorry for taking you back.
You're welcome.
When you stopped that auto update,
Yes.
what did you do before the query started? The query ran. That's safe.
Steven,
After you unticked it, my query is still not running.
You have to close it and reopen your workbench.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I'll try that. Thank you. What happened to the admin now?
Let's wait for him. Network is bad at his side.
Okay. All right.
Hello, class.
Yes, we are here.
What are we doing now?
No, he hasn't come in.
Yes, it's taking
I
some
messaged,
time.
I've messaged him. He said he's having network issue over there.
Okay. Let's still wait.
Class rep, what are we going to do? Give us direction.
Let me continue from where he stopped.
Okay, go on.
Everybody share your screen
Yeah.
as well.
Um, Sorry everyone. We have a message from the facilitator. He said he's having issue with his network over there one, and then after connecting, it's still showing offline. So he said we can go to bed this night. I will continue from there tomorrow. Have a lovely night rest, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Mela did not even allow me to finish the message before she left.
Hello. People are already tired and it's all right. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.